Hello everyone, this is me, Jessie. This is like a new study idea that I had where I'm going to read a chapter and then condense those notes and then verbally read these notes out loud and then like make a podcast out of it so I can listen when I'm like doing other things. Just because I found listening to like med school podcasts and anatomy podcasts really helped me when I was studying for the DT or when I felt like I wasn't doing anything to be productive in that physical moment, just because I'm a learner of many different ways. So I'm just going to see how this plays out, I guess. So I hope this could be a resource for other people. So yeah, this is for my dental anatomy class. For the first chapter, we have a quiz this week. So I'm just going to be reading my notes about an intro to dental anatomy. So teeth are separated into two arches, the upper and lower arches. The upper arch is called the maxillary arch, and the lower arch is called the mandible. The mandible, which is the lower jaw, is the movable jaw, while the maxillary jaw, which is the upper jaw, is stationary. Between these arches, there's a midline, which is an imaginary vertical line that divides the mouth into halves. And then the mouth can then further be divided into quadrants. We have four quadrants: the maxillary upper right quadrant, the maxillary upper left quadrant, the mandibular lower right quadrant, and the mandibular lower left quadrant. It's important to remember that our left is actually different on the patient. So our left is going to be the patient's right, and then the patient's left is actually our right, just because of the mirror image of perspection. You know what I mean, POV. So occlusion is the action of the mandibular bottom jaw teeth contacting the maxillary upper jaw teeth. So that is called occlusion. And the process of biting and chewing food is mastication. So when you're masticating, you're chewing food and biting. So there are different classifications of dentitions. The humans are known as heterodonts, meaning that we have different types of teeth that have variable functions while masticating and chewing. A homodont would instead have all one of the same types of teeth. Humans are also known as diphyodonts, I believe that says, which means that they have two different sets of teeth: a deciduous set of teeth, baby teeth, and a permanent set of teeth, adult teeth. So that means that they are diphyodonts. Polyphyodonts, on the other hand, have two or more or continuous, like sharks, sets of teeth that develop throughout their life, whereas us humans only have two, so we are diphyodonts. So we have two dentition phases: deciduous and permanent. The deciduous phase, which is the primary phase, or baby teeth, have primary dentition, and these primary teeth erupt around 6 months of age until the baby is around 2 years old. There are 20 primary teeth, 10 of the top on the maxillary arch and 10 on the bottom on the mandibular arch. And then we have the permanent dentition phase, which in that phase we have 32 permanent teeth, and 16 teeth are on the top maxillary arch, and 16 teeth are also on the bottom mandibular arch. The permanent teeth are erupting from around 6 years old until we're 21 years old. So the permanent dentition phase lasts from around 6 years old to 21 years old. I'm going to pause it really quickly. Okay, now moving on to classification of teeth. So humans have eight different types of teeth in the permanent dentition. So we have two incisors, which are the first two teeth that are closest to the midline, and the first tooth is the central incisor, and then the next tooth is the lateral incisor. In mastication, the incisors work to bite, cut, incise, and shear. There are 4 total incisors per arch, which means that there are 8 total incisors in the mouth, which means 4 on the top, maxillary, and 4 on the bottom, mandibular. Next, we have one canine, which is also known as a cuspid, and the canine is the third tooth from the midline. The canine functions in mastication by cutting, tearing, piercing, and holding, because of the sharp canine. We have 2 canines per arch, so that means 2 in the top and 2 at the bottom, with 4 total canines in our mouth. We then have 2 premolars, which are also known as bicuspids. So the bicuspids, which are the premolars, are the 4th and 5th teeth from the midline, going towards the back of the mouth. So we have the first and the second premolar, and the premolars, also known as bicuspids, function in mastication by tearing food, holding, and grinding. We have 4 total premolars per arch, so that means 4 in the maxillary top and 4 in the mandibular bottom. So that means we have 8 total premolars per mouth. This is for permanent teeth also, by the way, just so you know. And then moving on, we have 3 molars, and those are the 6th, 7th, and 8th teeth, so like the farthest 3 teeth from the midline, so all the way towards the back of the arch of the mouth, which are known as the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd molars. The 1st molar is also known as the 6-year-old molar because that's what it erupts when it's 6 years old. And then the 2nd molar is also known as the 12-year-old molar. And then the 3rd molar is the wisdom tooth. The molars function in mastication by grinding. We have 6 molars per arch because there's 3 on each side, so which means there's 6 on the top maxillary molars and then 6 molars on the mandibular bottom, which means that we have 12 molars, permanent molars per mouth. So that, again, is for the permanent dentition. We have 8 different types of teeth, 2 incisors, 1 canine, 2 premolars, and 3 molars. Moving on to the baby teeth, the primary teeth. In the deciduous dentition, we have 2 incisors, so we have the central and lateral incisors, which are closest to the midline again, which function in biting, cutting, incising, and shearing. Then when we move on, we have the 3rd molar from the midline in the baby teeth. We have the baby canine, which is the cuspid, which functions in cutting, tearing, piercing, and holding. We move on. We do not have premolars in the deciduous dentition. We skip over premolars and we go right into 2 molars, the 1st and 2nd molars, and they function in grinding. So again, there is no premolars, and there's actually 1 less molar per quadrant in baby teeth, so we only have 2 molars. So in total, we have 2 primary incisors, 1 canine, and 2 molars, no premolars, which means that with baby teeth, there's 5 teeth per quadrant, which means there's 10 teeth per upper and lower arch, which means we have 20 total baby teeth. So humans have 2 dentition types, which are deciduous and permanent, but we have 3 dentition periods. Because deciduous and permanent periods overlap, we have the middle mixed period. So the first period is the primary period, which mostly has primary or deciduous teeth. And then we have the mixed period, which has both primary and permanent teeth. And then we have the permanent period, which has obviously mostly permanent teeth. So the first period is the primary period, which is the period that has mostly baby teeth. So that begins at 6 months of age with the eruption of the first tooth to 6 years of age is when the primary period ends. At 6 years, the first mandibular molar will erupt, which ends the primary period, because that is the first permanent tooth to erupt, which is the lower first molar, which is also known as a 6-year-old molar because the eruption of that happens at 6 years old. So once that 6-year-old molar erupts, the primary period is over and we enter the mixed dentition period, because now we're going to have a mixture of both baby and permanent teeth. So the mixed dentition period begins at 6 years old with that eruption of the first lower mandibular molar, the 6-year-old molar, and it will go on to around 12 years old. It ends at age 12 because that's when the last baby tooth will exfoliate, which means it's going to fall out. And that last baby tooth to exfoliate will be the maxillary 2nd molar, which is the upper 2nd molar, which is also known as the upper 12-year-old molar. Because when the upper 12-year-old molar falls out, that means that the mixed dentition period is over, and we began the permanent dentition period because there's no more baby teeth in the mouth. So, the permanent dentition period begins at 12 years old when that maxillary 2nd molar, 12-year-old molar falls out, the upper 12-year-old molar falls out. So we begin the permanent dentition period and continues until we die, basically. So, in order for a permanent tooth to come in the mouth and erupt, a baby tooth must exfoliate or fall out. So, this happens through the process of resorption. Resorption is when the roots kind of melt away, eat at itself and disintegrate, and then the baby tooth can fall out, so the permanent tooth can come in. So there's a type of teeth called succedaneous. So succedaneous teeth are permanent teeth that replace the exfoliated baby teeth that fell out. So succedaneous teeth actually means succeeding teeth, meaning that these are the teeth that come after, that succeed after the baby teeth. So they are permanent teeth that replace the baby teeth. So since we have 20 baby teeth to replace, that means there are going to be 20 permanent succedaneous teeth. The types of teeth that are succedaneous are the incisors and the canines because they replace their counterparts, and then the premolars because the Premolars, the permanent premolars, actually replace the baby molars. So since the permanent premolars are replacing since the permanent premolars are replacing the baby molars, the permanent molars have nothing to replace. Therefore, the permanent molars are not succedaneous. But the permanent premolars are succedaneous because they are replacing the deciduous molars. And I'm sorry if I was yelling or talking fast. I'm not sure if anyone's going to listen to this except for myself. But that's good because I like fast talking. And I'm sorry if I was yelling, but you could fix that by turning down. And thank you for listening. This was part of the first chapter of dental anatomy. Thank you.